Genesis chapter 1, the creation of the world, verse 14. It states, "And God said, Let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years." What I want to point out here is the main reason, or the first reason given for these lights to be placed in the expanse of the heavens was for signs. Let's turn to Revelation chapter 12. The woman and the dragon, or the serpent, and a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was pregnant and was crying out in birth pains and the agony of giving birth. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon, or serpent, with 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his head 7 diadems. His tail swept down a third of the stars of heaven and cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she bore her child, he might devour it. She gave birth to a male child, one who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. But her child was caught up to God and to his throne. And it goes on to speak about the woman fleeing into the wilderness. On September 23rd, 2017, the day after the Feast of Trumpets, during what's known as the Days of Awe, the 10 days from the Feast of Trumpets to the Day of Atonement, this sign will appear in the heavens, in the sky. We have a woman, the constellation Virgo, or Virgin, clothed with the sun, with the moon at her feet. A woman, verse 1, clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. The constellation Leo, or the lion, is made up of 9 stars. But on this date, in perfect alignment, are 3 additional stars, or known as the planets Mercury, Mars, and Venus. In the first century, they were not aware of planets. These were known as stars. These were moving stars in the heavens. This makes up the crown of 12 stars. On that date, the day after the Feast of Trumpets, during the Days of Awe, it says that she was pregnant and was crying out in birth pains and the agony of giving birth. Leading up to this alignment, the planet Jupiter, known as the King Star or the Messianic Star, spends approximately 42 weeks within the womb of the Virgin. Actually spends 41 weeks and 6 days, full term of pregnancy, within the womb of the constellation Virgo. We'll go back in time. This is September 23rd, 2017, August 2017. We see Jupiter within the womb of the constellation Virgo, or the woman. We'll go back. July. Jupiter is in what's called retrograde motion for a period of 42 weeks. The full term. Go back to May. We see Jupiter still within the womb, or the constellation Virgo, beginning in November of 2016 is when the king planet, or the messianic planet, or star as it was known to the first century, enters in to the constellation Virgo and spends the full term of pregnancy. And it says another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon or serpent with 7 heads. Right next to the constellation Virgo is the constellation Serpens, which is broken into 2 parts. The head, which makes up 7 stars. And his heads, 7 diadems. Ironically, above the heads of the serpent is the constellation Corona Borealis, which is made up of 7 stars, or 7 diadems. And notice the location of the serpents. It goes on to say his tail swept down 1/3 of the stars of heaven and cast them to the earth. This is one unique constellation in that it is separated into 2 different parts, the head and the tail. And of that tail, twice a year, there's a meteor storm or falling stars that come from that tail. And that takes place in December of each year. And it says the dragon, or serpent, stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she bore her child, he might devour it. Look at the location of the constellation Serpens, the serpent ready to devour the child as it exits the womb of the Virgin, or the constellation Virgo. There you have, in Revelation chapter 12, given by John the Apostle on the island of Patmos, 2 great signs that he witnessed in heaven being seen in September of 2017, the day after the Feast of Trumpets, for all to witness.